Hello and welcome to episode 56 of the Mental Health Gaming podcast. Once again, I'm still here, I'm Brad, and I'm joined by my C&I dog, Stu. How are we doing, Stu?
Rough. I see what I did.
Don't cross that, don't cross that road.
Yeah. No. I'm fine, thank you. I'm doing pretty well. Can't complain.
Excellent. I actually can't either. Getting more into that in a little bit. But still, I haven't really played it. Well, I haven't played anything for the last week. So I'm living through my kids again. So I'll touch on that. So I'm hoping you've played something, Stu.
I have, but again, not much. But that won't stop me rambling about them for as long as you need. So that's fine. The first is, basically two games that I've been playing on the original Game Boy. So I've been, as you know, getting consoles in, modding them, selling them on. And I've got a Game Boy Light, which is a rare Japanese only model of the Game Boy. Basically the same as the Game Boy Pocket, but it's got a really cool green backlit screen. That's the first Game Boy that ever had one. So yeah, that's not bad. So on that, I've been playing a couple of games. One of them, the first one, is R-Type. So obviously everybody knows what R-Type is. If you don't, it's a horizontal shooter. It's basically thought of as one of the pinnacles of the genre, along with Gradius, or however you want to pronounce it. And yeah, on the Game Boy, obviously there's some compromises because it's just a tiny little monochrome thing that's not much more powerful than a Speccy, but it works really, really well. It's a great conversion of it. So the principal change is that the sprites are much larger, which is ironic, obviously, because larger the sprites, the more memory, and little handheld devices can't cope with that very well. But because obviously you wouldn't be able to see anything if they weren't bigger, it's made them bigger. So there are a couple of technical glitches now and again, flickering sprites, but it does it really, really well. So it's got a smaller play space, bigger sprites, less maneuverability, but it's sort of dialed down the sort of shot count from the enemies so that there's fewer bullets and lasers coming at you. But that means that the environmental stuff, so avoiding stuff basically, has been ramped up because it's a smaller area and bigger sprites. So it plays slightly differently and all the timings are different. But it's done it in a way that they've been they're really cautious of it, because they obviously, Irem, when they were developing it, realised this would be the case. So they've rebalanced things really, really well, so it works, and it doesn't feel unfair. It doesn't feel too easy. It's just a Goldilocks thing of everything's just right. And I'd never played it before, and it's a really early Game Boy release, so it's nice to have a go on that. It's a strange curio from the past that is nice to touch upon.
Yeah, I'm fairly sure I played this on original hardware. I might be wrong, but I'm fairly sure my uncle had it because he was a big fan of Defender. So I
man of taste.
I'm fairly sure he had this, and I played it on the original Game Boy, and yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
Now I've played it since via emulator on a Raspberry Pi setup and stuff like that, using the the screen overlays and everything for it, and it was still really, really good. And I actually think I preferred it personally to the main R-Type because I was better at it.
Yeah, no, that's totally fine. I think you don't really see, because you don't have arcades anymore, you don't often see different versions arrive on different consoles. So like, if they want a game to come out on Switch, they'll build it for the Switch, and then it'll be identical on, every platform, like Hades. But obviously in the past, versions between consoles could be, infinitely different. The RoboCop games, like every single one was developed for its host platform.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating. Yeah, and this version, I can well imagine you liking it more than others. It works really, really well. It is easier. It's less punishing, but that doesn't mean it's easy at all. But yeah, playing it on original hardware is great. And I tend to emulate everything with a couple of exceptions, and that's the main exception is hardware, handheld hardware, because I like to be able to just sit down and play. Sat down on the sofa doing bugger all other than just a little world of my own in my hands kind of thing, if that's not too rude.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's one of those things. One of my favourite consoles of all time is the GBA.
Yeah.
I think it's an amazing console, especially it's backwards compatible with Game Boy games and everything as well. But it felt like a next gen handheld, because I mean handhelds at the time were very, very basic. So it did feel like it upped the game a little bit. And the one that really did it for me, and I remember playing, was the Tony Hawk's conversion.
Oh yeah.
And it was basically the exact same levels, but it was in like this isometric view, almost like a really updated 720. And it was just so good to play. Now I emulated that over like later years and stuff like that on a bigger screen. And yeah, it loses something. It really does. You look at it and go, oh my God, it actually looks awful.
Yeah.
But it didn't at the time. At the time, it looked amazing. It's not just through retro eyes. It's when I played it again on an SP, it looked good again. And it was like, no, this was designed for this hardware and this hardware only. And I've got an RG350M that was sent to me kindly. I've not been able to use yet. And I'll be interested to see how it looks and plays on a similar size screen to the GBA, but with higher fidelity, well, obviously a higher fidelity screen.
Yeah.
But yeah, some things definitely only work on original hardware, especially when it comes to older handhelds.
Yeah, yeah, and sometimes they, like you said, they work well on newer handhelds as well. But what they don't tend to work very well on is the big screen, and it's why I never bothered with the Super Game Boy when that came out for the Super Nintendo, where you could plug it in and then just play Game Boy cartridges in it. Because I just thought, well, you know, if I want to play those, I'll play them on the hardware. But yeah, no, it'd be interesting to see how it handles it on that little handheld device. So that device that you got, did you ever find out who sent it to you?
Nope.
God, that's really weird, isn't it?
I know. I put it, I mean, there was nothing in it. There was no markings or anything. The only thing I can think is maybe it has come directly or something like that, because there's Andy Hamilton on Twitter. He picked up one of the retro machines and he was playing Brian Lara cricket on it. And I was mentioning stuff on there about it, but that's the only mention I've made of it. So whether it's come from just someone who's aware of us or something like that, whether it's a family member, an actual, you know, a friend who isn't anything to do with mental health gaming or forums or anything, like, I haven't got a clue. So whoever did send it, even if it's the company themselves, thank you. I've not spoke much about it because I haven't been able to play it yet because of my eyes. But honestly, thank you. It means the world. Completely loaded up as well.
Wow.
I don't know if I can say that, but yeah, no, completely loaded up with stuff, but not Brian Lara cricket, which is disappointing.
No.
That's how I like probably wasn't Andy Hamilton himself.
Yeah. Well, was the box all sealed up when you got it, or was it opened?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I think it must be from the company then.
Must be, but I didn't realise we was big enough for stuff like that.
No.
Where the hell? Oh no, because addresses available in my emails and stuff like that. But I don't know. I honestly don't know how they got my address or what. So.
Well, who knows?
Oh, I know. Mind you. Yeah, no, actually, I know how they would get my address. I'm obviously not going to advertise how they could do it, but yeah, I just realised how you can do that.
All right, okay, yeah. Oh, cool.
That's through my card in the phone box.
Yeah, I can just imagine you with little tassels on your nipples. Fantastic.
You imagine you've got the photos.
Well, yeah. Well, you need to have some sort of bribery stuff ready in the background just in case.
It's really funny. I know this is slightly off topic. My partner got one of those emails sent to her. Do you know the ones that go, I've been able to view your internet history and what sites you're viewing. I'm watching you via your webcam and what you do, you naughty person. You. So if you send me 3,500 Bitcoin, I will destroy the evidence I have, or I will send it to all your friends and co-workers. I've got one of those. You often get those. They go straight to your junk. She saw it and she went, "This is quite funny." But I went, yeah, no, it is. And she went, "Shall I respond?" And just go on then.
Yeah.
Do you want a list of the sites we frequent? But it always reminds me of a story of someone who shall remain nameless, who was contacting me about their email, and they was going, Brad, has my email been hacked? I was like, shouldn't have been. Why? Oh, well, I've had this email come. It was the general gist of one of those, and I was like, no, it's fine. All via text and this. He's getting back to me really quickly every single time. But I'm really panicked, What if they're trying to, do I send... Well, I don't want to send money. Obviously, I went, no, it's a scam email. Well, how do you know? Look, they've said what my password is. I said, you've probably had a compromised password somewhere else, but honestly, that's not a problem. And I'm reading the email. He's getting really panicky, texting me every few seconds. Oh no, I'm really worried. So, okay, so I said, right, listen, hang on. The problem is, right, you shouldn't worry. As long as you've not been visiting any sites like this with your webcam on and doing stuff, there shouldn't be a problem. So have you? 5 minutes passed before the next reply. With a no. So I was like, well, you shouldn't have a problem then. But it was like everything was instant. Oh crap! That's almost how it went, and it tickled me. But yeah, that always makes me laugh. But anyway, video games.
Yeah. So the second one I've been playing, unsurprisingly, another Game Boy game, is Donkey Kong 94. I don't think it was actually officially called Donkey Kong 94. It's just it came out in 94, so that's how people separate it.
How long ahead before Country was that? 2 years?
I guess it must have been because it was, something like that. Oh, maybe not. I don't know. I'd have to look it up. Yeah, because I never played those games, so I don't have a good thing in my mind of when they came out.
No,
they were kind of late-ish in the
fair
SNES
enough.
life cycle, weren't they?
Yeah, because it came out around the time just before PlayStation 1 came out, and it was like graphics that blew you away at the time.
Yeah. So
yeah, it must have been 95, 96.
Yeah, probably. But so it's a real surprise, this new Donkey Kong. I say new, it's 25 years old, but new to the Donkey Kong franchise, and it's really, really surprising. So it keeps the format of the original game in that it's a single screen, and you have to go work your way up generally, but we'll come to that, to the top and rescue Daisy. Was it Daisy at that point, or Peach? Can't remember, but
all gamer cred going, I can't remember. It was one of them.
You have to go up and rescue, let's just call her Daisy. So
generic princess.
Yes, generic lady. She's not even a princess in this game. She's just a woman.
No.
Yeah.
I don't think it was in the original either.
No. So there you go. What's the point? But so you have to work your way to the top of the screen, avoiding the stuff that Donkey Kong is chucking down at you. But then it kind of segues into having lots of different environmental and switch puzzles and other types of puzzles in the next levels. So it has like stuff where you have to get around and touch certain panels on the floor whilst avoiding enemies to complete the level, or you have to collect certain items and then open doors with them, like get keys or whatever. It's really, really clever, and it has a couple of new mechanics. It has one where you can tap down and you stand on your head, and then when you press jump you do like a great big flip backwards. It's also got a running back flip like it has in Mario 64 and a lot of the games since, if you've got enough space and speed to get up to that speed and do it. But it still has stuff like carries over, like the hammer from the original game, where you're running around, it automatically hammers stuff. But you can press a release button and the hammer will fly up in the air, and you can climb up the ladder to the next level and catch it. So it's like, right, because you can't like climb with the hammer, So it's got all sorts of really excellent little touches, and I'm just amazed I never played it. But I suppose by 94 I didn't have a Game Boy, like an original Game Boy or a Game Boy Color. And so, it just passed me by. But it's well worth picking up. So, fantastic. Pick it up and have a go if you can.
So was this an actual release title? Because I've never heard of it either.
Yeah. It's really good. It picks up lots of innovations from Mario World and from some of the other stuff like Mario 3 and stuff that will then be also seen in Mario 64, which came out a couple of years after, obviously. And it's official and it's really good. But I guess it just was because it was so late on, and it's not actually a Game Boy Color release. It doesn't have the color branding on the cart. So it must have been overlooked. Yeah.
It's really weird to think back to those days, like that the 90s into the 2000s, and just how much the face of gaming changed. Like, you look at some late Game Boy releases, and then you look at the date, and then you look at the date the PlayStation 1 came out, for example, and it's just like, how was this released around the time or after this was released? It's just made... It's very hard to... Like, if you used to look at those games as a historian, trying to piece together how they were both released in the same era just makes no sense whatsoever when you look at what today's is.
Yeah.
But I know we're retreading almost in a way, sort of like what we spoke about earlier. But, you know, being blown away by Ridge Racer, how amazing that looked, 3D graphics and everything. Yet it wasn't long before that you were playing Outrun and games like that, which sort of like looked amazing, like Blue Skies, everything, you know, trademark, but were flat still, just full of life and colour, but flat. And then you had these amazing 3D realisations. And then you look at when Gran Turismo was actually released, and it's like, just wow, that's just, yeah, it's very hard to comprehend. It's like going, hey, do you know these Romans, they made these like these pots and these rows, and they were really innovative, but they also built the first computer. It's almost what it feels like at times.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, it's staggering. The level of like animation and the sprite work in Donkey Kong 94 is really impressive for such a... I mean, the Game Boy had no power at all, you know, it was so basic comparatively.
Yeah.
But they managed to squeeze so much out of it. And I guess that's the reason why, you know, like you were saying about the Game Boy Advance, it felt like such a massive step, because we'd had the Game Boy and the Game Boy Color, which is pretty much the same thing, for like 11 or 12 years between that and the Advance. So it was, a huge leap. But yeah, no, what they got out of the Game Boy was pretty incredible.
But they're still doing it, because I keep getting emails from new Kickstarters, and there seems to be a bit of a renaissance at the moment where people are retro making brand new games for Game Boy hardware.
Yeah.
You know, I haven't got the list of emails with me because they're just Kickstarters, so I'm reading and making a note of them and then deleting the emails until later, because I can't afford to kickstart everything that looks good. Yeah. But people are still making stuff, and when you see some of the ideas and see what they're getting out of the original hardware, it's like, wow.
Yeah.
It's a really good idea. You know, they're going to make physical carts and stuff like that. And it's better than, you know, I've played games like, I can't remember the name of it. It's like a little weird cat sprite thingy. And it's like done in like a Game Boy screen. But it's a sort of like designed Game Boy screen, and the graphics look right, but clearly it's moving with modern technology to help get more out of it. So it runs at like more frames per second and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
It's like, right, I get what you're going for. The aesthetic is there, which is really great. I do like it. But I think people have made games recently for like the Mega Drive and things like that. And it's like, I love seeing that.
Yeah,
I absolutely love it. And I know you can get machines made that will take original cartridges and pretty much have the original hardware condensed into like a chip, don't they? So they can run them all in a single console and stuff.
That's right.
It's just like, yeah, I love that stuff. I live for that stuff at times.
Yeah, it's really clever. I really like the fact that people are doing that. And I think it's really important as well to help retain the heritage, because like you said, I think it's more important with certain generations. Like after you get past the where we should cut it off, I think sort of PS3 and Xbox 360 is kind of the cut off in a way, because consoles start to resemble PCs at that point, you know, and they can be emulated by PCs as long as they're powerful enough. And they do have some quirks in their design that means that it's not just straightforward. But, you know, once they're ready, once the emulation's there, you can chuck them in your PC and you're okay. Whereas prior to that, when they were cartridge-based and when they were like in 16-bit era, but even like the PS1, there were so many quirks that you kind of need to actually use that hardware to get a proper feel of them.
Yeah.
And, definitely from the PlayStation and Saturn era and earlier, it's like that. And, it's really important, I think, that they have FPGAs, which are these programmable chips where you can just tell them to be a console. And, so that you can just stick the original games in them and off you go.
Yeah. And I do like looking back. It's to carry on back, I think, back to last week's discussion where we was talking about the best Marios, which actually caused some discussion, which I was quite pleased about.
Yeah.
And I like Adam, he agrees with me. I had my son reading out, my partner reading out messages for me to pick up on stuff.
Oh, cool.
So one of my favourite 2D Marios, I can't remember if I've mentioned this before, but is and it kind of fits in with the games you've been playing, is Super Mario Land on the Game Boy.
Yeah, it's a corker. Yeah.
Now I know a lot of people don't remember it fondly, or they sort of look back on it and go, "Oh, it clearly isn't as good as the other big boy Marios and stuff like that." But for me, it was one of the first ones I played religiously. And I can't remember ever sort of like having any kind of save point in it. And I don't know if there was password saves or anything, but I never used them because it was always when I went round my nan's house, I got my uncle's Game Boy and I'd play it on that after having a go of tennis and golf. Do you remember when games were named Tennis and Golf, by the way?
I do.
Yeah, we still had Mario in them as like the umpire or as a playable character. Those were days. But I loved Super Mario Land. It was difficult. It was almost one of the first, I think, pixel perfect platformers. Because I remember it was brutal at some points where if you did miss a pixel, it would go, no, you're dead now.
Yeah.
And it had the underwater level where you had this little submarine thing, and it was, I just really that at the time. It was like the idea of playing a Mario on a handheld. See, that seems like kids today would go, well, yeah, but to me, it was like, oh my god, an actual Mario game on a handheld. It was, but I love that. That's well up there on my favourite 2D. Still behind Super Mario World, but it's definitely right up there as one of my favourite.
Yeah, one of the best things about Nintendo is that they never really chuck away any ideas or sort of paths, and they're always willing to go back to them. And they don't think genres are too old or too played out. They find little ways to make them great. And I think, Super Mario Land might have been a bit of a B-team sort of production, but it's got enough quirks and oddities in it, like, the little flying a little ship and shooting and stuff.
Yeah.
To make it really stand out, yeah.
I would pay £10 to Nintendo if they added a Super Mario Land kit to Super Mario Maker 2. Just putting it out there.
Yeah, that's a really good idea, actually. The final thing on all this Game Boy talk is to touch on IPS screens as well. So
yes.
I've managed to sort out an original Game Boy from Japan because it was ironically cheaper. And the reason that it's cheaper is because there's been an explosion over here in people getting the original Game Boy. So on eBay, they cost, a broken one will cost you 30 quid. So they've really spiked in price. And I think it's because you can buy these IPS kits now that are not just the new screen, the IPS LCD screen, but you get the body as well, the shell of a Game Boy, and really good quality. And all you need is the donor is the main board from the original Game Boy. So I think that means that they've really spiked because those IPS screens are just phenomenally good. As I said before on another podcast, as a present I put one in my wife's Game Boy Advance SP and it just looks unbelievably good. So there's been a real huge kind of reinvestment in it, and it's partly because there's much less flicker and there's no smearing when they scroll. So it's like getting and playing those games all over again, but properly. So it's actually worth going back to with that with that new hardware.
Yeah, I want to get a little collection of retro. Well, not even retro. I don't really care for the Game Gear. I like the Game Gear. We watched Euro '96 on a Game Gear when I was in Army Cadets.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know. Someone brought one in because it was on. They went, what the hell? You get a TV adapter for this thing? Yeah, so we all watched probably about 10 minutes of it before we all had to panic and find a power outlet. To go, oh my God, it's dead. So yeah, we all watched Euro '96 on a Game Gear at Army Cadets once.
Nice.
But I want like the original Game Boy, and I want a Game Boy Pocket and a Game Boy Color, a Game Boy, all the like the advances. I do want a collection of all of those, not necessarily to play, just because I want them to put them on a shelf in a way because they are beautiful, but to also get them down and play them at times because I think they were such an important part of gaming history.
Exactly.
When you look back. Because I think without the success of the Game Boy range, you don't get the DS. And without the DS, you don't get the Switch. And without Nintendo's innovation, you don't get a PlayStation. You don't then get Microsoft entering the fray like they did. And God knows how far behind gaming would be in terms of popularity these days. I think it'd still be a underground movement almost.
Yeah.
But I do want to get all those, and I would like get them and get like the screens all put in them so they're better fidelity. However, have you tested whether one of the new IPS screens can take a dart to it and still work?
Funnily enough, no, I've not had a go at that yet.
Because the original Game Boy can. But as I remember my uncle's one, I went round one weekend to my nan's and sort of like picked it up, and I was like, oh no, there's a hole in it. It was like, and they went, yeah, we was playing darts, and like one of us like bounced out and went straight through the Game Boy.
Oof, nice.
So there's this hole right through the plastic into the screen.
Yeah.
And yeah, it still worked. But I mean, the joke was obviously like the Game Boys will be the only things, along with cockroaches, that survive nuclear holocaust.
Yeah, they are like tanks. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Are.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about like the brick Game Boy. It wasn't because of the shape of them. It was because people used to tie notes to them and throw them through windows.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's why it's the house that Nintendo built, because they was all built out of Game Boys as well. I mean, I could go on forever with puns, but I don't think I will.
Very good.
It's also because I've just run out of puns. I was just making it sound like I had loads.
I see right through you, Bradley.
Yes, most people do. So just cover sort of living vicariously through the kids. Daughter completed another level of Super Mario 3D World.
Nice one.
She was really pleased about, so I got another big high five from her. She got a little bit of help from her brother this time because there was an awkward bit, but nope, she did it. But we sat down and we watched. Well, I saw moving colours on a screen and listened, but she watched the recent Nintendo Direct, which I believe is the first full Direct in about a year. From Nintendo. I know they've had loads of minis and indie showcases, but I believe this is their first full Direct, obviously because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And yeah, lots of excitement. She's really excited for Mario Golf. But she seems obsessed with Mario at the moment, which is great. That I was at that age. Well, maybe a little bit older, but probably a fair bit older when we look at it. But I know I was young. But yeah, she's obsessed with Mario at the moment. Got really, really excited at the news that Fall Guys is coming in the summer.
I bet she did.
Yeah, she loves Fall Guys, and yeah, she'll play that on her Switch. And also Monster Hunter she wants. Okay, fair enough.
That's a strange choice, but you know, it's her choice.
It's got dinosaurs in it. She likes dinosaurs as well.
Okay, right.
But yeah, no, she's really excited about what she's seen. And Splatoon, she got really excited at the Splatoon 3 reveal because she's played like seen us play it, and she really likes like the colours, and obviously with Splatoon she saw that, and she like came up and she went, "What's that, Dad?" And I went, "It's Splatoon 3." She went, "Splatoon 3! Wow! Oh my goodness!" It's like, okay, calm down. So yeah, she's making a list of games that she wants this year, and it's just great seeing her now begin to understand what games are and loving them like I love them. My son's he likes games, but he's very much stuck on, he'll play Minecraft and Call of Duty and things like that with his mates. So he's got maybe about 4 or 5 games that he rotates. Whereas me, you know, I love everything. I'll play loads. You know, he doesn't even use a Game Pass. I suppose he does because he'll have a quick go or something and then go back to what he likes. But yeah, no, my daughter, she's all over it. Everything. She'll play everything. She's allowed to. She needs help with a lot of it, but
Yeah.
she'll go and play Animal Crossing for an hour. And just sit there and just potter around. She hasn't even completed any of the tasks, but she just potters around the island. And she got again really excited about the Mario crossover coming to Animal Crossing. And it's just great seeing her. I think where she's got access to it all, as much as she has, she's just grown into it. And it's wonderful seeing. I can't wait to introduce her via the RG 350 to some of the old SNES Mario games and even stuff like Donkey Kong Country. I wasn't the biggest fan, but I think it would be great for her to see it, playing the original Sonic columns and showing them I used to get all these free packs and of games that came with the console, and Alex Kidd and all of those. I just can't wait for her to see all of those properly. But it's just great seeing her at now. She's 4, just over 4, and she's getting just so excited about it all.
That's really great. It's brilliant when kids get into it that way, especially when it's based around just exploring those worlds, being part of the worlds rather than completing any tasks. That's fantastic. And there's something about handhelds that's a great leveler in gaming. Visuals and frame rates and all that stuff really matters to some people in the bigger consoles and stuff like that, but on handhelds you don't care what they look like as long as the game's good and you can actually see what's going on. That's kind of all you need, and that's a brilliant way for kids to get into gaming so that they don't just chase the next thing and the next set of graphics, so they're actually enjoying what's actually going on in front of them.
Well, you say that, but she did turn round to me yesterday and go, well, Father, I think you'll find that the game I've just been playing, it dropped below 60 frames per second for a whole 3 seconds, and I really struggled.
Well, they're so advanced these days, kids, aren't they?
I know. But no, they don't. Kids don't care about frame rates or even graphics. They just enjoy games, and it's one of the things I'm grateful about that I've never grown out of. And I don't despair, because everyone can enjoy everything how they want, but it does sadden me a little bit when you see some people play a game and then go, I'm not playing it anymore because it's only 30 frames per second. It's like, come on, really? Maybe you've admitted you've enjoyed that game, but now because it's 30 frames per second, you're going, oh no, I'm not going to enjoy it. It's like, I get some people are susceptible to it, but to completely dismiss something, and I've been guilty of it. I refused to play Grid 2 because it didn't have an internal car view, and I'd look at it and go, that's petty, because I actually still quite enjoyed playing it in the end when I played it. So the pettiness over some things. Don't get me wrong, a racing game that's not 60 frames per second doesn't play as well as one that is 60 frames per second, but it doesn't make it a bad game. I will go back to Grid, 30 frames per second, and it still played really well because they built it around that. So I think always, as long as the game's built around doing it in that way, it works. But it also comes down to marketing. I think it needs all the publishers. I'm not going to put this down on the developers as such, but it needs the publishers to stop promising breaking barriers in the way they do. Break those barriers, because innovation leads to more innovation. But stop overselling what your game's doing. Sell the fun, not the technical aspects, because then people might pick up on that a bit more. It's why Nintendo are so good at what they do. Yeah.
But I think, that's entirely true. I think there's more of a level to the 30 frames debate, just that it does introduce input lag, and that makes it less responsive. And I think where that's important is to pick up on Nintendo. All of Nintendo's first party releases are 60 frames per second, and one of the reasons that they seem to be competing, or are competing in terms of fidelity and fun with the AAA market outside of the Switch, is because they always make sure they're 60 frames per second, so they're smooth and they're responsive, and it does make a big difference to their business model. But I agree with you that in terms of general tech, again using the Switch as an example, that's just, nobody cares. Everyone's like, yeah, God, it looks good enough for me. It's why push back? Why do a Cyberpunk 2077 and make mistakes
Yeah.
when you could just do something like Hades that works flawlessly and looks nice.
Yeah.
So
But the difference being with Nintendo's first party output is, yes, it is 60 frames per second, and it is important to a degree, which makes me sound hypocritical. I get it's important that they can push that, but what they do, when have you ever heard Nintendo go, Super Mario Odyssey's out, 60 frames per second, high def graphics?
yeah.
No, they don't. Whereas, we'll use CD Projekt Red or Ubisoft, for example, the two of the best companies. Fuck's sake. And with the Watch Dogs controversy, and now with Cyberpunk, they was pushing, look at these graphics, and this is how it's going to run. We're overselling it to you. It's going to run at these frames per second. It's going to be 4K. You know, it can push to this, it can push to that. And then you can't make that. Or it's not the same experience for everyone, and that's when you get your issues. Rather than going, hey, look, here's Watch Dogs. It's a great open world game where there's a lot of freedom to it, and the idea of hacking and stuff like that is funny. You put together a small showcase of it. Don't oversell that showcase. Same with Cyberpunk. Do what that is. Tell them what it is, but don't oversell what you're going to struggle to meet, because that's what then leads to the crunch. Because you've then got to go, right, we've got this game. We think it's fun. Whether other people do or not doesn't matter. But we think this game is fun, but we can't quite get it running the way we've promised. Okay, so we're now going to spend months or weeks more getting that done. Everyone's got to work overtime, and that's what causes this. Rather than doing what Nintendo do, which is we'll show it when it's nearly ready. Metroid 4 being, an exception, I suppose. We'll show it when it's ready to get the right amount of hype. We'll make the game we're making. We'll go for fun and playability first, and then that should sell the game. Most of the big companies don't do that. They're going for, these are the numbers. This is what we think sells. Yeah, it isn't. Because I said, CD Projekt Red, I don't know how they recover from Cyberpunk. Ubisoft are a joke. You know, when you take aside the actual vile nature of their business practice, or, the abusive practices, within the business, take that out. Their actual games are a joke amongst gamers, because they're all homogenized titles that you could just call Ubisoft title number whatever. And they still can't push the graphics the way they want to push them. Or they cause issues with them. There was a reason I still find Far Cry 2 to be one of my favourite Far Crys, because it was innovative and it tried something different. I didn't care that you'd get some slowdown when the fires were spreading naturally and stuff like that. That was a cool thing, and it worked in the gameplay, and you could forgive it dropping those frame rates. But they didn't sell it on that. Yet when they start selling Watch Dogs, as this amazingly realised world that will run like this, and they're showing all these shadows that were never possible to do on the hardware they were selling it, then that's when you start to get the negatives. And then that's already buggered you up for Watch Dogs 2 and things like that, because people will look at Watch Dogs 2 and go, well, Watch Dogs was a letdown, The Division was a letdown, and it leads to those problems. And I say, Nintendo, and this video isn't sponsored by Nintendo, by the way, get this right. They get a lot wrong. They're online and all that is we know that, but they get a lot right, which is, this is a game we're making, this is when we're going to market it, you'll get this at some point this year, usually within 3 to 6 months, and it's going to be fun. That's how you should market a game. That should always be the first and foremost thing. Is the game fun? Getting the right message. It's either fun or we've got a story to tell, not it's going to be this. And I think it's almost a shame for the developers of Watch Dogs Legion that Ubisoft the bed for everything else, because from what I understand, Watch Dogs Legion was a much better looking game, and they sold it on the story and the fun aspect, because I don't remember any of the marketing leading up to it going, oh my god, look at how good Watch Dogs Legion looks. It was about, this is what you can do within the world, and this is the idea, and look, if you look at what's happening in the UK at the moment, well, maybe this is what can happen beyond. And it tried to use that, and I feel they marketed that right, but I say, unfortunately for them, Ubisoft are a bunch of wankers, and I'll never get to play it. But yeah, they got it right then. So I don't know what point I'm trying to make, apart from it'd be nice if people actually marketed their games based on what they actually were, and not how nice they look and how well they're meant to run.
Yeah, I think that it helps. I mean, it's probably a debate for another day, but it helps when you have a single platform release because you can work towards the strengths of that machine. And I think the things that are multi-platform, people tend to work from the best machine down, which is never a good idea. Always start with the base model and get it working as perfectly as you can without any real proper flaws, and then increase, allow certain machines like your PS5s or, your PCs to have options to make it better, but get it working perfect on the base model before you add anything extra into it.
Yep. No, I totally agree with that. And coming from someone who's done web design, when you still have to design websites to run, it's maybe changed now slightly, but until very recently, had to design websites to run with nigh on obsolete versions of Internet Explorer because of the amount of people that still had it, and then build up from that, or at least have the fallbacks for it. You always go, right, what's the smallest screen someone uses? It's a mobile device. So you build from mobile first to make sure it looks good there. And then you can go more and more fancy, the bigger resolution the screen. So you can have a really fancy looking website on a desktop. It's got all the animations with it if it needs it, all the little wonderful flashes with the fonts doing certain things. But at its core level, on a mobile, it's readable, it's functional and stuff like that. So yeah, with games it should be the same. If you're what are you aiming for? Are you aiming for a Switch as well, and are you aiming for a top end PC? Right, build to the Switch first and then go up, or do what we used to do back in the 80s and 90s, completely separate games. And I'll use, I would have loved to have played a version of, say, Watch Dogs, for example, where there was a big boy console version that was bells and whistles, and then there was almost like a handheld version that was just mainly, maybe not open world, but was a lot of structured missions. I would have been more than happy with that. I've always said one of the best things about the VMU on the Dreamcast, or one of the things I always do, was I can't remember what game it was, but you played the main game and then you had these little pet things you could then download to the VMU and take them about with you and play them as like a little virtual pet, and then level them up within the VMU and take them back into the game leveled up. That was brilliant. The idea there was brilliant, and I would love something like that for other games. Again, I've said before, The Witcher 3 or even The Outer Worlds, things like that. By the way, The Outer Wilds is coming to the Switch. Can't wait. Yeah. But The Outer Worlds, I want to play the main game on my PC or on the Xbox or whatever, because that's going to be the optimal experience. But I want to potter around on the Switch. So cross-save, or allow me to do something with more sort of like side missions, like structured side missions that I can play on the Switch version. Don't have to make it the full version of the game. It can be its own thing, and then have them maybe link in some way. Use what technologies we got to bring the experiences together, rather than going, here's the exact same game on another console. And one of the best examples I saw recently, it's going back a few years now, is Killzone on the Vita.
Absolutely, yeah.
Apart from the stupid touchscreen gestures that I had to force in to try and prove that the touchscreen stuff was good. Wow, that game was almost perfect for the Vita. It was one of the best first-person shooters I've played on a handheld.
Yeah.
And it linked into the main game story and stuff like that, but it's its own thing at the same time. The multiplayer on that was really good as well. I think a lot of people forget how good the multiplayer was on that game. But yeah, it was the, in the same world of it, but it was made for the Vita. More of that, please. More of that.
I think, yeah, exactly. You're going to get the best out of everything if you make it specific to a machine. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, but I won't argue I'm one of those that caused a problem by seeing a game and going, when's the Switch version coming out? Yeah. But then the Switch is its own thing because, it's a hybrid console, so it's kind of, I think it was around the time, I think you looked, what would you say, between maybe 2010 to 2015 almost, that big publishers were scared of trying new things because you feel it was a case of if something didn't sell millions because of the amount of money they were pumping into it, then it was a failure.
Yeah.
Dead Space, for example, was enough to sort of like almost shut down Visceral Games. I mean, they did in the end, but that was enough to destroy them despite making millions. It just didn't make enough millions. So I don't know whether they were scared of trying new things or anything like that. And I think they're now struggling to keep up with indies in terms of innovation. But yeah, I don't think we'll ever go back to that time where innovation happens on a console basis, but one can dream. Maybe one day.
Yeah, you never know. And I think, I would like to think that as time goes on, that people creating their own games for older consoles, obsolete consoles, might become much more of a thing because of a lower barrier to entry, you know, because it's easier to program for and because you don't have to pay rights and things like that. And you might see more of them. So, yeah, fingers crossed, especially with FPGA making, you know, getting hold of these things much easier and cheaper. So, yeah, fingers crossed, eh?
Yeah, and that's Donkey Kong 94. No, we wasn't even talking about that, was we? We'd moved on.
I don't know. We've been, we were 52 minutes in at the moment on the counter. So that's quite a while.
Wow. So, to kind of almost finish off everything, unless you have anything specific you want to talk about, but on obviously my ongoing eye struggles, I'm sleeping a lot because I'm sitting there and going, well, I can't see much, so I'm closing my eyes and listening. So I'm nodding off a lot and having sort of like 20-minute power naps left, right, and centre. Yeah. And it's so I'm not doing much, so I'm kind of keep nodding off, having sort of like little sleeps, and then when it comes to going to bed, I'm wired almost and can't go to sleep. And then I'm tired the next day, and then it's easy just to drop off. As I almost missed the podcast today because I nodded off at about 9:30. And but I've got hopefully some good news on the horizon. Saw a specialist on the Monday, and they looked at both of my eyes. And just for anyone who doesn't know, I'm pretty much completely blind in my left eye, which needs my cataracts removing and my retina repositioned back into place. And my right eye has just got too many hemorrhages, and there's some detachment of the retina on my right eye. But anyway, they've put me in for surgery on Thursday to work. They was going to work originally on the left eye because that needs more attention, but there's more chance of saving my vision in the right eye, so they're going to do that one. And then, obviously, if I lose complete vision in my left eye, so be it. Why is there no bionic eyes yet, by the way? But anyway.
I know, yeah.
All the stuff we can do, you would have thought they could a little camera in your glass eye.
One day.
That would have been...
Yeah, one day.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, so that's happening. But he kind of sat me down during the thing because I said I've got to have it under general because of the phobia I have with my eyes being touched. And he said to me, he goes, right, if you have a general, you're looking at weeks, if not months, before you can get a surgery. If you have local, I can get you in Monday. So we went, what is the fear? When I can't, like the idea, I can't even put contacts in, you know, touching, like my eye being touched, I just can't do. He turned there and went, well, you've sat there during me, like while I've been looking at your eyes and diagnosing, you sat there calmer than most. And stiller than most. I went, yeah, but you're not actually touching my eye, are you? And he kind of looked at me and went, yeah.
All right.
I went, what? And he went, so he goes, do you know when we put he says, when we put the it's not a magnifying glass, I can't remember what he said it was, but it's a little thing they put to your eyes and they can see better in it. It's got a lens in it, a lens, I suppose. He put that there. He goes, that's actually touching your eyeball. I went, what? He went, yeah, it's touching your eyeball. You sit there calmly for that. I didn't know that was touching my eyeball. He went, right, it is, and it's going to be no worse than that. And I went, what about the injection? And he goes, not going to lie, it will sting briefly. But he goes, how many injections you had? And I said, oh, plenty. He went, no worse than that. He goes, you're building it up because it's your eye. You've got a phobia. You're right. Honestly, it's going to be a slight bit of pain as it goes in, or a sharp scratch as it goes in, but it'll be fine after that. He goes, but I'll leave it up to you. And he went, all you've got to do, and this is you can tell this is an ADHD brain that's then working around. So he's talking, he's going, all you've got to do is lay there for about 60 to 90 minutes after the injection while we do the operation. I went, what? I can lay down? He went, yeah. I went, yeah, I'm in. And he went, what? And I went, yeah, no, I'm in. He goes, okay. I said, right, I need to suck it up anyway, because if I don't, it's going to get worse, and I can't do the things I enjoy at the moment, and I feel useless. So I need it done, so I'm going to suck it up anyway. And he went, right, and I said, but it gets uncomfortable when you're sat there and you've got your chin resting on the thing, your forehead against the blocker, and they're looking in your eyes. So it gets uncomfortable. When I've had laser, that's the thing, it gets uncomfortable, and that's the thing I want to end. He went, no, you lay down for this. I was like, okay, yeah, I'll do it then.
Excellent.
And he went, right, okay. He goes, what you should do is call your GP and see if he can prescribe you a pill to take on the morning that will help relax you. Because he goes, you probably will tense up a bit when you get the injection. It'll just help relax you and keep you sort of a lot more mellow for the first part of the operation. But he went, after that it should be fine, and then hopefully your vision will be sort of like on its way to being mended. But so yeah, I'm hoping to get a lollipop on Thursday for being a brave little soldier.
Yeah, I bloody well hope so. Yeah, you've put up with all this really well. That's really good. So, did they say what the chances of success are on doing the operation?
No, I didn't want to know either.
Yeah,
because I'd panic and worry about it. If he turned around and went, it's 50-50, I'd be like, oh crap, that's me dead. Well, not dead, that's a bit too far, that's me blind. And if he'd have turned round and gone, yeah, we've got like a 95% chance of it, I'd have been sort of like, this is awesome. I'd have built it up as like, I'm going to be absolutely fine. And then I'd have sat there just before going, I'm going to be in that 5%.
Yeah,
it's clearly going to be that. So I didn't want to know. I know it's a risk, and I know there's a chance it might not be saved. But then at the same time, if I don't get it done, then I'm just going to get worse and worse anyway. So there's that side to it. So yeah, I didn't really want to know, because I didn't want to have that kind of around my head constantly.
Yeah. No, that's fair enough. Yeah, totally get it.
But the frustrating thing is, I get like bouts during the day where I can kind of read. So I kind of read stuff and go, I'll reply to that, and then can't, because I can't read the letters I'm meant to be typing properly on the phone. It's really weird, because I can bring the phone close to me and I can kind of read stuff on there, but the computer screen is still too blurry for me to concentrate on what's there.
Yeah, I get it.
But the TV, I can kind of make out. It's just a really weird depth thing going on. But yeah, not enough to ever reply to stuff.
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
So yeah, but overall, so hopefully this time, by the time everyone's listening to this, I might even be able to see again, or at very least by the next recording. Fingers crossed.
Excellent. Yeah, no, we're all hoping for the best and expecting it as well. So yeah, hopefully by Thursday, Friday, things are looking up.
Yes. Well, I know it's a shambles without me.
Absolutely.
Well, before we go, we started obviously getting a bit of feedback via the Discord on the podcast, the last time we put out. So what I'm going to be doing, once my eyes are better, I'm going to set up a new email on for people to reach us on, which is going to be podcast@mentalhealthgaming.com. Won't work yet, it's not done it, so don't email in yet. Where I'm going to ask people just to send emails, whether it's comments about games or us, or they've got questions. Everything you send in, unless you say specifically, we'll read out as anonymous, especially if it's on the mental health side of things. But yeah, we're going to get that email set up as another thing, so you can email there with any comments, anything you want to add to the podcast, especially if you're bored of me going down my own roads with stuff as well. But yeah, that's going to be set up in the next couple of weeks.
Good stuff. So yeah, all that remains to be said is follow us on said Discord. Great chat going on there, and lots of great people, and talking about all sorts, from games to TV to mental health issues, everything in between. And loads of content on YouTube and all the other socials, so make sure you're following. If you want to support us financially and you can afford it, then we're available on Patreon or via coffee donation. Other than that, hope you're staying oh god, messed that up. Hope you're staying safe. Hope you're staying I can't get that sentence out. I'm giving up. Sod you all. Have a terrible week. No, I'm just messing. So have a good week and stay safe.